Welcome back to the interrogation room. Today I have a special guest with me. That is former LAPD officer Ruben Palomares. Ruben, thank you for coming on the show today.
Hey, Pete, thank you for having me. It's a privilege.
Listen, I want to get right into it today because I want folks to know a little bit about you and your career and the fact that you were ultimately assigned as a investigator in charge of watching over and monitoring the MS13 gang out of Los Angeles. Isn't that right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, great. So before we get into that, can you give people a little bit of your background? I understand that you were a championship boxer, well on your way to the Olympics when you were injured and ultimately recruited by the LAPD. Can you pick it up from there?
I grew up in Boyle Heights, Huntington Park, Boyle Heights area, and pretty much that whole area is known for the drug gang activities. When I grew up in that area, my goal was to first learn how to box real good, and then from there try to make a career out of boxing. My goal was let me get into the Olympics, get out of the Olympics, become a world champion. You know, make that good money, and then be set financially. That's what I thought. But when I got injured before the trials, after that injury, I took the next step. The next goal was to become a police officer for LAPD, which that was the next step, and I took that path.
Okay. And so you were pretty young when you joined the LAPD, right?
Yes, I started the process around 20, almost 22 years old.
Okay. And then I understand you were ultimately recruited into what some of us older folks know as the 21 Jump Street or the undercover unit that works in the high schools, right? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, they call it the Undercover High School Buy Program. I got out of the academy, and right out of the academy, I did a few months patrol in South Central in Watts. Maybe 4 or 5 months. Right during that time, I got a phone call from which is a undercover narcotics unit. They called me, and they asked me if I was interested in getting into the Undercover High School Buy Program, which is like similar to the 21 Jump Street program. I thought about it. I slept over thinking about it, and I thought it was going to be an opportunity for me to learn something new on the job, and I took the opportunity I took the job. Then from there, I got assigned to Parker Center. While in Parker Center, they want to get you young because they don't want you to still like. If you're already been broken in by the patrol cops, by the police department, you're going to have certain habits that officers have, and people could detect that. If you're trying to be undercover, you want to still be fresh like a street person.
Right. A lot easier to blend in, right?
You want to blend in. So what happened is they bring you into the office and they start training you on how to talk the undercover talk, the narcotics talk, the high school talk. So they train you on how to interact with the kids again, because now you're 20 something years old and you're going back to high school, and they're going to put you in 11th grade. And you have to look young in order for you to fit that mold too.
Right.
That character. And then they train you on how to buy drugs, how to go out in Hollywood and Venice Beach. They take you out there and they have you buy drugs on the boardwalk on Hollywood, the Hollywood Walk too. They just let you go out there while the detectives are watching you. They'll train you on how to go buy drugs. They let you go out and just to try to buy drugs off people that are selling drugs out there. Then they train you how to interact. Then they train you how to act in school.
Okay. And what was the first school that you were assigned?
My first school was Verdugo Hills High School.
Verdugo Hills?
Up in the valley. It's up way up in the valley.
Okay. And how did that go for you?
When I got there, I was registered, and you have a license already that's with your name, but it's not your last name. It's another last name. You keep your first name because it's easier for you to remember your first name. If you pick a weird first name, if your name is Ruben and you on your undercover name is Tom, and somebody's calling you Tom, but you don't even remember that's your name, and they're calling you Tom, and you're not responding to Tom, they're going to start thinking that there's something wrong with that guy. Either he's deaf, he can't hear us, or something else is going on with that guy because he doesn't respond when I call it Tom. So I kept Ruben, but I changed my last name. And then a DMV gives me a legitimate license. So then I go register in school, and now I'm fresh back into 11th grade.
Okay.
And you got to act like a student, but you got to have your good ears, good eyes, and start seeing the crowds. You know, you have to see where the sports crowd is, the jocks, the nerd, you know, the same typical high school stuff, the groups. And then you
Okay.
start looking at the potheads, the stoners, and you start fitting in, gradually start blending with somebody in there.
So you were obviously successful in your first endeavor undercover in the high school, right?
Yes, I was. I started
Okay.
buying narcotics. I started
Okay.
buying weed. The first time I bought was weed, marijuana. This is back in the 90s, early 90s, 94, early 94. So there I am buying weed, and as people get to know or hear that you're either buying and selling somewhere else, you start getting introduced to other people. They introduce you to another guy that's selling back then PCP, heroin, cocaine. Now you start letting your friends in school think that you're like a little wannabe drug dealer, that you buy drugs but you sell it somewhere else. But you want good offers, good deals.
Right. So before we get into the MS13 gang and the fact that you were assigned to them to monitor them, I want people to know one more tidbit about you, because before you went into this undercover unit to monitor that particular gang, you were actually in a shooting, right?
Yes, I was.
Can you
It was
talk a
in,
little bit about that?
sure. In 1994, as I'm working the undercover high school program, I get confronted by one of the students in school telling me he has PCP. If I'm interested in buying the PCP, I told him, well, yeah, but how much do you have and how much is it going to be? He says, I'll talk to you about it later on today. I actually paid you because back then there was no cell phones. There was pagers. So I got his pager number and he got mine. That same night, he paged me to let me know how much he was gonna bring to school the next day so I could take the money to buy it. So while I'm on the payphone, where I was at was in Huntington Park. So while I'm there, I get approached by two older gang members, and they're armed with a handgun. And one of the guys with the handgun points his gun to my stomach, and then he started demanding my money, my wallet. During that time, I was still in plain clothes, undercover, but I still had my badge and my 9mm Beretta in my rear waistband. So my whole situation, my frame of mind was to distract them. Well, what I try to do is distract the guy with the gun, while the other guy on the left side, he's trying to search my pockets. He's trying to go through my pockets to see if he can find my wallet or my money. And I'm trying to distract both of them because I know if they find it, they might still end up shooting me, especially if they know that I'm a cop. So I push the guy to my left, keep moving his hands that way, tell him I don't have a wallet. I gave him the keys to my car, I gave him my money, and I told him that's all I have. And the guy's in the front with the guns, jabbing me with his gun to my stomach, and he's saying, "Give me your wallet, or I'm gonna kill you." They don't know I have a wallet now. They're just trying to be pushy and insistent. So at this point, I start thinking, okay, there's no other way out of this one. So I end up backhanding the guy, and then I end up pulling the guy's gun from him. But as I turn with the gun, try to point it with him, he holds on to the barrel. I mean the butt. uh, I hold on to the barrel and point it towards him. We fall to the ground, and as we fall, we're both now side to side with the gun pointed towards his face, the barrel. He still has a grip of the gun. His friend starts kicking me. As he's kicking me, I'm blocking with one hand. This guy's able to pull the gun away from me and points it towards me. As he does that, I grab his friend's leg and throw him over me. I get up to draw my weapon. He starts firing at me. He hits my right leg. I spin around and hit him, and I shoot at him. He hits me in the left leg. I just start chasing and shooting as I'm walking towards him, running towards him. I'm firing away. I hit the guy with the gun. They turn a corner. The driver that was waiting for them around the corner picks him up, takes him to the hospital. I go back to the payphone. I end up calling 911 because there was no system, no backup at that time, because I was on duty because I was making a phone call to set up a narcotics buy for the next day. When I call 911, the ambulance shows up, the police department shows up. They treat me with, I had two bullet wounds, one to my right leg, one to my left leg, through and through. I get interviewed by the police department. They take me to the hospital. I get treated and released that same day, same night. That's where a lot of stuff started changing for me. That shooting started really changing. Something happens to us when we get into shootouts, and that
Okay.
shooting changed me a lot.
And I would like to get into some of that a little bit later, if you don't mind, because obviously I think it's important for people to understand what an officer goes through when they are in a shooting. And like most people in the critical incident, I believe you're referring to PTSD, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I appreciate you sharing that with us, because I want to give people background. You went through a recovery process, and ultimately, I believe you went back to the high school with crutches, right?
Yes, I did. My bosses, I took like a month off. I was still a rookie. I could have probably milked it longer because I was actually with fresh bullet wounds. But my old way of thinking, my macho way of thinking is like, tough it out. It's all right. Get back to work. The department awarded me a medal. They call it the police medal. It's similar to Medal of Valor, and it's because of bravery and whatever they want to call it. And the guys got arrested in the hospital. They got arrested in the hospital. They were sent to prison for a long time, but they were treated for their gunshot wounds too. Uh, but I went back to school in crutches, and that opened the door for me to start buying more drugs because the kids started asking me what happened. I liked them. I told them that I was in the projects because I know the project's pretty good in East LA, Boy Heights area. I told them I went to the projects to buy some weed, and the guys tried to rob me. They shot me. And
Right.
the guys at school, the kids at school said, why don't you just come to us? We'll hook you up with whatever you need. So that opened the door. So at that moment, I started buying more drugs from people. I must have bought just in that maybe month span, because that's all I had left in the high school, about a month before before they do a roundup, which means they start arresting all the kids. I might have bought 50 kids or more, and I bought everything that existed: cocaine, weed, heroin, you name it,
Right.
cocaine. Even did big
Yeah.
old search warrant at a house where they found kilos of cocaine, weapons.
Okay.
So yeah, that was an opportunity for me to get more rest.
Okay. Well, okay. So having said all that, I wanted to ask you, when did you ultimately get the call to join the crash unit?
I left the undercover high school buy program maybe like 1990, early 95. It was, no, it was probably December of 94 when I left the narcotics unit. I went and I got transferred to Rampart Division
Okay.
first. While I'm there, maybe a year into it, while I'm in Rampart Patrol, I get called by the sergeants, and the sergeant running the unit was Eddie Ortiz. He invites me and says, "Hey, you know what? The guys in the unit, we've been looking at your background, your package, your hard work, your arrest record, um, you're a squared away guy, solid guy. We want to offer you a position in the crash unit, which crash means crime resources against street hoodlums, and that area during that time, that unit was well known for uh, dealing with the major big gang problems in that area. So the sergeant invites me. I told him I would think about it, and maybe into a few months after that, I took the offer, and I got promoted to crash.
Okay. How long after you got promoted did they assign you to the MS13 gang?
Right away, the first day, I got assigned to a partner, Dan Lujan. He was already working crash for like 5 years, so he was super familiar with all the gang members from the crash from the MS13 unit gang, from all the cliques. He knew who was who. He knew all the players. He knew all the areas. He knew the hangouts. He had been doing it for like 5 years, and he was well respected and feared as a crash officer against MS13.
Okay.
So when I showed up, he just started breaking me in into teaching me the ropes.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to continue this episode, and I'd like you guys to stay tuned, because in our next episode, Ruben is going to get further into the MS13 gang and how he worked them and some of the incidents that he was involved in. So please tune in to the next episode with Ruben Palomares. Thank you.